Hi folks, welcome back to the Horde. It's approaching 2:30, December 9th, Monday. About 33 degrees. Looking at these things like agree. This is 34. That says 1 degree, 2 degrees centigrade. And that says my batteries aren't charged yet. It is muddy and crappy and slippery out there. Look at this. And for those of you guys with a good memory, you can probably guess what this video is about. Yep, it's about this wreck. I've been telling you guys to buy these things, and I just want to go through a quick what do I look at when I'm looking these over. So, just from a distance away, it looks like, I don't know, a cross between a cat fur ball and something the cat left in the litter box. I mean, she's pretty ugly, right? So that's cool. You guys could say that and laugh about it and say, and depending on who the guy is, you got to see if these guys get insulted. Because if they get insulted, you're not going to get what you want. So be a little careful. But you can always make a joke. You know, did anybody survive the wreck? You know, was this thing part of a production lot where anybody survived? You know, stuff like that. But once you get down to business, let's talk about this bike for real. There's one of two ways you can look at this bike. You can look at it, oh, I'm going to fix it up and make it a show machine again. Well, about that, you may want to put down the crack pipe and think twice. That's going to, it could be done, but you got a long road here. Anyway, just quickly, what is this thing? This is I don't know, could you guys see this? Honda ATC 200. And you look at it quickly, obviously it's got a motor, it's got an exhaust, right? So we have, let me try some better camera work. We have a complete exhaust, right? We have a motor. Just looking at it, it doesn't look like the motor's damaged. I always take a quick look. I take the oil stick out quick, and there is a little something on the bottom there. It doesn't look too horrible. The oil stick itself doesn't look melted or burnt. All very good things. So after the initial look, start looking at the motor. That's important, because if the thing has some real value money-wise, the motor's a big chunk of it. You guys notice the recoil starter is on there. It's complete, and that's a good thing. So you look at the motor, look at the shifter too, make sure it's not welded on. Look at the cover, make sure it's got like more than one bolt on it, right? Real common thing is stripping the bolts out. Take a look at this thing. See if it's scarred, and it does look like somebody messed with it a little bit, which means at some point somebody attempted to time this thing up, which hopefully also means that they adjusted the timing chain at least once in this thing's life. So I'm looking at the motor, and for what I've seen so far, I'm kind of happy, right? The motor mounts are not broken, right? For those of you who look at the electrical systems, there are two different CDI units on this thing, right? One CDI unit has the square plug. That CDI unit, or that electrical system, to be honest, isn't quite as good as the round plug electrical system, but the nice thing about the square plug is you can buy those. You look it up on eBay. The China CDI units, the cheap ones, they go between $8.95 and $10.95 with the white plug. The small square one, try to get one the same exact size with the same color plug. They plug right in and they're replaceable. The round ones, if they go bad, you got to figure out if you could well, you can, but you have to rewire it. And once again, the round ones are better. You get a hotter spark. The square ones are available. You can't buy any more round ones unless you buy some new old stock from somewhere or you get a used one. You notice I was running my hands around the bottom of the gas tank. I was looking to see or feel what kind of shape it was in, and I didn't feel any place that it was rotted through. You could feel the seams get fat. Looking in the gas tank, I've seen them a lot worse than that. So the gas tank, believe it or not, is probably savable. You noticed a dent. I mean, the cap looks good. So suddenly we're looking at this bike and we're saying, boy, the motor mounts don't look too bad. The motor itself doesn't look too bad from a cosmetic. And lastly, so she's got compression. So the motor has a lot of potential. Second thing, start looking at the wiring harness, right? I mean, it's hard to tell exactly what they did, but generally speaking, it looks like the wiring harness is intact, though, yeah, it looks like for some reason they unplugged the spark coil, the ignition coil, because the coil's here. But it looks like that wire that's hanging in space looks like it goes to it. But the wiring looks like it's intact. And as you're going through the wiring, make note of the headlight. Let me give you a hint. Sylvania halogens were never put on 1983 ATC 200s. So this is an add-on. There's no headlight bucket here. And the wiring, they did mess with the wiring a little bit there, but it doesn't look too bad. And the backlight is on it. Now, little things. Does it roll? Given that these tires are about square, that's hard to determine. I'm not thinking it rolls. So she might have seized bearings in the rear end. The brakes might be seized. Could be all the above. For me, that doesn't bother me too much because I have other bikes. I have a spare rear end. I could always throw it in. For those of you who have to buy a rear end, you're looking at it's about a $100 eBay item. So if you just have to throw a rear into it, typically they sell good rears with $150 will put a rear end on it. About the front, once again, I'm not sure if it rolled. I'm not sure if the brakes stuck. It's hard to tell. When you got the square tires like that or trash tires like that, it's tough. As I look at the tires, it looks like this one with the mouse nest in it. I don't know, could you see the mouse nest? That one has the greatest potential of coming back. Yeah, let's go through just a little bit more cosmetics. Front fender looks like it's pretty good, though somebody painted it. Gas tank looks like it's pretty good. It's got a dent in it, but it doesn't feel like it's rotted out. Seat looks like a bald-headed stepchild. I mean, the seat's not pretty, but at least it's something, right? At least if you have something, the plastic, you could start putting something back together again there. If you have nothing, it's very hard to start with nothing and go forward unless you have a parts bike. Another place to look, if you look in here and there's an air filter intact, I'll show you what I'm up to and not just talk about it. That's a good sign because that means they probably ran it with an air filter and the engine is in halfway decent shape, especially considering it's got some compression. If you open this up, there's no air filter and there's mice living in there. That's not a good thing. Oh, Great, we have an air filter. That's a very good thing. That's good news. You can look in the trunk, see if there's mice in there. There's just the guard for the exhaust system, but the trunk's intact, the light's intact. Plastic. This fender looks good. Doesn't look like it really has any issues. This one here, the back is broken, so one could Frankenstein that back in place or put a metal plate under it to get it in place. The mud flap, this is missing a piece of the mud flap. Shark bite, right? I mean, you can check the suspension. Most of these early ones, the suspension is blown, and this one is not a disappointment. Carburetor, is the carburetor seized? The answer is yes. So, what would it take to get this thing to move? I put air in the tires on my quad, so every time I lean against it, it rolls now. To get this thing to move, let's say, what would it take to get this thing to start? To get this thing to start, I'd probably get one of my China carburetors. Once again, eBay item, $25, delivered to the house. And you just look up Honda ATC 200 carb, and they have the knockoff brand there. Like those carbs. This bike has one of those carbs on it. I put it on there. It started on the first try, and I've been in love with them ever since. I think that bike's got one too. So, love those carbs. $25, they're cool. So, you bolt one of those carbs onto it. I like to hang a separate loose gas tank, something clean, something I know isn't a mess like that gas tank is. So put some gas to the carb, check the spark, pull the string, and see what you got. I'm almost positive this thing would fire right up and purr along happily, and that gives you the motor. At that point, you can put it in gear. If the rear end is seized, obviously it's not going to move. Right? If it's just a matter of those tires being all square or just a little bit of rust holding it back, she should break loose. Don't sit there if it won't. When you click it into gear, if it won't move, don't sit there gunning the engine unless you're in the mood to replace the centrifugal clutch. Right? You don't need that exercise. So you got the engine running. That's a very good sign. You're about halfway there, but you're also getting into some expense, particularly like with this bike. I'm hoping this back tire takes air. As I'm pressing on it, I don't hear hissing. As I press on this tire, I'm going to get my foot dirty, but I don't know if you guys could hear that hissing. That hissing means that tire is done. It's a wrap. The turkey done. The little button that pops is popped. You're screwed. Both back tires might take air and might be okay with this. If only you have to put a front tire on it, that's not too horrible. I don't know if this thing has rims that come apart or not. Normally the rims that come apart have extra bolts. And those back ones appear to have extra bolts. So they might come apart. That makes life a little easier. If the tire is rusted to the wheel, that's a bitch to get off. That's really rough. All right, I'm running out of time, so just quickly. What would I pay for a bike like this? Given that I walk up to it, I pull the string, and I feel something, I would probably pay $150 fairly easily for this bike. If for some reason I had to have it, I was jonesing for a bike or whatever, considering the plastic could be done and fixed, and I could probably get this thing running, and for some reason I don't think the rear end is seized. I'm not sure why I don't think so, but I don't think the rear is seized. And if it is, I do have a spare. So I would pay between $150, but my top on this bike would probably be around $250. And why do I say that? If you get stung, if you discover that you can't get it running, let's say you got 3 junk tires, right? You got a seized rear end. You know, this gas tank, though you might decide to clean it up and use it, you're not getting much money for it on eBay. That fender, the plastic on it, unless you clean it up quite a bit, you're not getting much money for that on eBay. You could get something for the rack, you could get something for the recoil starter, you could get something for the motor. They got the chain guard on the motor, which is a good sign. But until you get the engine running, you're not sure what shape the clutches are in and so forth. So you got to be a little careful. And if you don't have a load of parts to put into these things, once again, you got to be a little careful. I could, believe it or not, I could go a little higher for what I pay, because I have a hoard of parts and it won't cost me too much to fix it. The exhaust is intact, completely intact. Anyway, you buy it, you're screwed. Tires are bad, rear end seized. It has compression, but you're not sure it's going to start or not. If you're in at $150, you could get your $150 back out. As you're going toward $250, if those things are true, you're going to have a tough time parting it out and getting that much for it. I mean, unless you're going to completely strip it down, sell the exhaust for $30, the jug for $50, with the cylinder and the head, maybe you could get $100 for the top end of it. I mean, these things go. Some people try to get $150 for them. Typically, they don't. Some, I guess, maybe they do occasionally sell them, but typically they go for between $75 and $100. And it's a lot of work to completely part these things out to sell them. If you're not kind of doubling your money, what are you up to? So, what is this thing? This is a $150 bike. For a lot of people, it would be a $150 parts bike. For me, I would probably turn this into a $150 running bike. I would probably get this thing running. I don't know if I'm going to have enough time between now and when I go down and visit my doctors in the hospital there, to put a carb on this thing and fire it up. I'm hoping, but who knows? We'll see. Anyway, folks, this is a long video, so I got to run. Remember, live, love, and have a great time. Tires down, handlebars up. Thanks for watching. Thanks for subscribing. Thanks for commenting. And once again, this is $150 worth of Craigslist or eBay. You got to go pick it up yourself. ATC 200. It's not an S or anything else, just a 200. Thanks for watching.